We're taking a question from a viewer. Jake from North Charleston asked, I had some work done on my car and it was done incorrectly. Basically, I had to get the brakes done all over again. The previous work ended up messing up my rotors. How can I get my money back for the faulty work? Or do I need to go to small claims court? For that, we turn to attorney David AYLOR, who's got the answers. David, good to see you.
Good to see you. Glad to be back.
Wonderful to have you back. So they've got two questions here in one. First of all, how do you get your money back for your faulty work?
Well, that's a very good question because unfortunately it happens pretty often to people. Basically, they'll go to get something done on their car. They think they know what the problem is. Perhaps a mechanic will tell them it's a certain problem. They get that fixed. And it turns out either that didn't need to be fixed or maybe it wasn't fixed correctly. So the first thing you've got to do, no matter who you're dealing with, if it's a mechanic, if it's the one you've been to 1,000 times or you're new in town, you've never been to them, is make sure you get at the end of your work an actual statement of not only what was done, what parts were put in, and also the amount of labor that they put in. Because it may be hard to get some of the parts back, that sort of thing, like in Jake's situation, you know, if some actual parts were put in. However, at a minimum, you hope to at least get some of the labor costs back because it turns out the labor isn't what was done correctly.
Yeah. Now, since we're all novices when it comes to getting your car worked on, what should be the first thing that you do? You go in there and you just say, I just know you didn't fix it? I mean, how can I prove that?
You know, what you can do is, one, if you have a good relationship and feel comfortable enough, is you can go to the person and say, look, you know, something's still wrong with, like in this situation, the brakes or whatever it may be, the radiator, and ask them to look at it again. However, if there's a little bit of an uneasiness there, if you have that form of everything is, here's what I got done, you take that to another mechanic and say, look, you know, I went to a local mechanic. I feel like some of these things still aren't done. Here's what was said was done last, you know, Tuesday. Can you take a look, you know, even if you have to pay for that, you know, estimate, and see if that work's been done, and also maybe give you a second opinion. Because then you're not coming from an amateur look. You're coming from the angle of another mechanic who's actually said, no, these weren't fixed the right way. And then you may have a little more information to take it back to that mechanic.
Okay, let's say we go through all of those channels. Things still don't work out and we need to get our money back, because oftentimes I know that brakes are not cheap. Can you take them to small claims court? That was his second part of his question.
Absolutely, and that would be the best thing that you could do, unless obviously you're talking about even larger amounts of money, would be to go to small claims court, you know, serve the mechanic, have him come there, and then again, if you had that second opinion, you could maybe bring that person as a witness, but you also would have that documentation. But most of the time you want to give the mechanic a chance, because like so many other small businesses, they live and thrive off their reputation, so usually they'll want to try to make it right.
Will you refresh our memory again on what the definition of small claims court is?
Well, basically, small claims court is something that if you choose to have a lawyer, you can, but ultimately a lot of people go file on their own. They give you the documents, which are pretty easy, and then the person then ends up getting served. Once they're served, they have a chance to respond, and then you go in front of a judge. You know, it's going to be anything under $7,500, and you're going to sit there in the court and actually go through an actual trial, which seems a little bit intimidating, but the judges there are really helpful.
So just make sure that you have that itemized bill, like you were just saying. If you have to go to small claims court, then at least you have all your documentation. And
a second opinion would be great. I actually had it happen myself with an engine, and the thing that saved me was actually going to a second mechanic to show what they saw was wrong with it, as opposed to what the first mechanic said.
You mean to tell me that somebody tried to go toe-to-toe with you in a courtroom?
They did.
It was a bad idea.
It didn't work out.
David AYLOR, thank you so very much for being with us this morning. We really do appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
We're back with more Low Country Live coming up in a moment. Stay with us.